Woohoo! It's Create Day! Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to share with you how I took a plain glass vase and transformed it into this lovely little French country shabby chic cottagecore type vase through the wonders of chalk paint and texture and clay molds and lace and floral embellishments. I really had a lot of fun with it and I hope you enjoy watching. Okay, so for this vase I'm going to be using chalk paint in the color Cascade and these butterfly molds from Redesign. I got my vase all cleaned up, I washed it, and then I went over it with some rubbing alcohol to make sure that there was no grease on there so the paint would stick well. I think it might have been better to do a primer spray coat first, because it did. I still had some spots like on the bottom that kind of chipped off a little, but the rest of it held up really well because I do so much layering on this piece with different paints and textures that that didn't seem to be an issue for the main body of the vase. So I did 3 coats of that, and now I'm going to do my molds. I'm spreading some cornstarch into the molds so that the clay will release easily. I'm using the DAS clay, and you just kind of warm it up with your hands first and then press it into the mold, scraping off all the excess. And then it just pops right out. This was one of the ones that, in addition to the butterflies, it had these like postage stamp looking molds. So I made 2 of those, one round and one square, and then I just did some different butterflies. And here I wanted to show you this butterfly one because on all of the butterflies I had trouble with the antenna sticking in the mold and not coming out. I really had to I had to dig them out of there. Even with the cornstarch in there, I made several tries and they just would not come out with the rest of the mold. So if you know how to get around that problem, let me know. And so now I'm using the Aleene's Quick Grab tacky glue. Mine was really thick, so I had to add a little bit of water to it to get it to spread on these molds. But it held really well. And I'm putting these on before they're dry, so that way they mold around the shape of the vase. So I ended up doing think 4 butterflies and the piece in the middle on the front and back of the vase, and then on the sides I did some smaller butterflies. And then I had to let, when I got this side done, I had to let it dry overnight. And then the next day I did the other side, and then that needed to dry completely before I could move on to the next step. So once it was completely dry, I wanted to make some texture paint. So I'm using the same color, Cascade, and I squirted a little bit of water in there to thin it down a little bit. And now I'm adding baking soda. You can usually go about half and half baking soda, half paint. And it just gives a nice texture to help fill in around any of the gaps around the molds, because when it dries, sometimes it pulls away just a little bit from the surface, and this just helps fill all that in. And I also liked the idea of adding texture to the glass, because it just didn't have any texture at all. And again, I just want to layer and layer and just build this piece up, give it a lot more interest than it had. And once that was dry, I mixed the Cascade with some white, and now I'm just, with a really dry brush, I'm highlighting the butterflies and the postage stamps. Again, just another layer, and then I go around the entire vase and just hitting certain spots, so it just gives it more character. And now it's time to do the shadowing around the molds. I have a dark blue and a periwinkle and the original color Cascade, and then a brown color. And I'm just going to use my brush and I start with the blue, the dark blue, and I'm just going around the edges of the molds, and then just blend it out with another brush that's dry. And I just go back in, to the different colors and keep adding until it's how I want it to look. There's really no there's no specific way to do it. You just have to play with it and achieve the look that you are going for. So it was just a matter of add a little color here, add the other color there, blend it out until I had some good shading on there. And then I was able to go in with the Cascade to kind of help blend in any colors that maybe I got too much paint or it was too dark, and that's what I'm doing here. I'm going around all of them with the original color, just to make sure it's not too dark and globby. And now with the rub and buff and the old copper, I believe, just with my finger, I'm highlighting the raised areas on these molds. The camera doesn't really pick it up, but it made them look like they were originally metal, some type of like hardware or something on there. I absolutely love the way that looked. And now I'm taking from I have an IOD book of transfers, and this is just some writing that I thought would look pretty around the base of this vase. Normally you would like tape the transfer down and then rub over it with a little transfer stick until it's all on there, and then you just take it off. But because this was round and the glass curved inwards towards the middle, I had to keep readjusting the piece of transfer. I don't know if that makes sense. But if you just wrapped it around in one piece, it would be all wonky. It would not be straight. And it was still hard for me to get it straight the way I did it, but not too bad. In the end, I really like it. It gave it more character. And now I'm just burnishing over the transfer with that piece that it came on. And I just repeated that around 3 times. 3 different groups of wording till the whole thing was covered. And now I'm just going over with some fine grit sandpaper to distress those letters. They look too shiny and new for this vase. Okay, so now we're getting close to the end here. The next step is I wanted to do some white wax, so I went in with the clear wax first on all the molds, so that it would help with the control of how much white wax those molds picked up. I didn't want to completely cover up the rub and buff that I put on there, so this was just a way to help me control that white wax a little better. So I wiped it, just brushed it on, and then now I'm wiping it all off with a cloth. Now we're going to go in with the white wax. And I'm doing this over the entire piece. Lots of brushing on and wiping off with this project. So now I am taking my French linen and I'm painting this little cardboard tag. It curled up, which I wondered if it would do because of the wet paint, but it was funny because then I painted the other side and it curled back down, so it was perfectly fine for this. and I decided to go ahead and stencil with the Rub and Buff. These are mesh stencils though, and you know, I'm using my little spouncer, but I didn't realize that what if it's the consistency of the Rub and Buff, or just I didn't have enough on there, but it wasn't going through. It wasn't going through the mesh, which you can see right here. So, in with the finger, I just became a lot more aggressive with it and smushed it in there. You know, the mesh stencils usually are meant to use with like a little spatula type thing. But I just used my finger and it ended up working out great. It was kind of rustic looking and not perfect, which is what I wanted. I did get a little heavy-handed on this second M though. So now I'm just taking that little spouncer that I was originally using and going around the edges with the Rub and Buff to just make it look a little more rustic around the edges of this name tag. And so now we need to put some little embellishments on here. Oh, I need to mention too that before I did this step, I clear coated it with just a flat clear sealer spray paint. Even though it has the wax on there, the wax needs, I think, 5 days to cure before you can expose it to water. And I was going to give this to my mom the next day, and it was going to have fresh flowers in it, so I just wanted to make sure it was protected immediately, and I didn't have the 5 days to wait, so that's why I did that. Otherwise, you wouldn't necessarily have to do the clear sealer. Just the wax itself will be sufficient. So I hot glued on a piece of lace, and then now I'm just doing these little paper flowers. I got those at Hobby Lobby, I believe. And now for the tag. I just took some jute twine and did a little slip knot through the hole in the tag. The tricky part was getting it wrapped around there so that it would hang right. Like that twine was being really particular about which way it wanted to spin that tag. So that's what I'm doing here, is I'm trying to get it to do what I want it to do. And then I just hot glue that on. and then just wrap the rest of the twine around. I really like how this turned out. Very pleased with it. Lots of layers, lots of texture. And now I'm just finishing it up with this little jute bow. There we are. Let me know what you think. Well, that's going to do it for this video. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, I hope I've inspired you to go create something. See you next time.